Hey beautiful souls, welcome back to my channel where we dive deep into the goddess archetypes to help you reconnect with yourself during perimenopause and menopause. So today we're going to be exploring Persephone, queen of the underworld, the goddess of transformation, psychic wisdom, and hidden power. And this just happened to be my archetype as well. If you ever felt like you live between two worlds or you're awakening to your intuitive gifts, you might be a Persephone woman. Okay, so who is Persephone? Persephone is the the innocent maiden and the powerful queen of the underworld. She begins as a daughter of Demeter, but is taken into the depths of the realm where she transforms into a ruler and a guide for souls and a bridge between light and shadow. So who is the Persephone woman? A Persephone woman often experiences life as two halves. So before and after major transformation. She is naturally drawn to the mystical, intuitive, and unseen realms. So if you're the type of woman that likes tarot cards or psychic readings, you might consider yourself a prophetess like they do in the church. Like you can actually have visions and prophecies. If you're a medium, people who've crossed over have come to you. You are a Persephone woman. My personal transformation started after the death of my parents when I was 16, a year apart from cancer. And that's when I was really triggered the most with my psychic and mediumship abilities. Before that, I was always, into like spooky things. I like reading horror stories, and I had a Ouija board and all kinds of stuff. But after my parents died, that's when I was really triggered. My psychic abilities really got triggered. Now in the mental health field, I don't know if I told you guys, but I'm a graduate student. I'm getting my master's degree in clinical mental health counseling to become a counselor. We'll talk about that later in this archetype. People who have auditory or hallucinogenic type visions are highly schizophrenic. So I have clairaudience, basically, which means that I get information from my crown into my throat and I'm able to like talk about it. And also I'm clairaudient. So that's part of that hearing. I actually hear, don't do this, don't do that, go here, pick that up, buy onions, don't forget to lock the door. I actually hear those voices, which is like my spirit guide or my intuition in my head. They're not like outside of my head, they're like in my head. So that's part of living between the two realms, the realm of the so-called real and the realm of the shades or the shadow or the underworld. Now don't get me wrong, underworld is not hell. Let's just be real clear, underworld is not hell. As a shamanic practitioner as well, we have several realms. We have the upper, middle, and lower realm, which is also known as the underworld. So you have spirit guides there. The people who have crossed over are there. You can reach your power animals there as well. And I'm able to really travel and journey to the lower realms, to the underworld, and get information. I think every single person that has died in my life, which has been a lot, that's also part of the initiation or transformation, has come to me in a vision. I can go to the movies and have people who have crossed over just stand around me, because that darkness and the sound puts you into like a trance state, which puts you into an alternative state of mind, and they can easily come. It's almost like Persephone women, we're like a lighthouse, and people can see our light from the people on the other side can see our light from the other side. So yeah, I've had some of my friends, relatives come to me and give me messages to give to them. And it's hard as a person of color. It's very hard to have these experiences because, a lot of Black people are very religious and very church oriented, even though they call prophetesses, but they don't talk about it a lot. So, I just kind of kept all this information to myself. I was just this crazy person that just knew how to connect with the shades. So, yeah, it's a difficult archetype to have when you're living in two different realms. So, again, many Persephone women are psychics, mediums, or healers and act as guides for others, in their darkest times. But you have to get to that level of transformation within yourself, because, again, this is a very difficult archetype to have. So, how were Persephone women when they were young? Persephone women when they were young were very naive, very dreamy, easily influenced by others. She may have been drawn to like fantasy and escapism and the unknown. And many Persephone women go through initiatory experiences, often traumatic, that pulls them deeper into more spiritual existence. And that's what I was talking about with my parents. Losing my parents to cancer a year apart, that was initiation, which caused me to have to go to the more spiritual aspects. But at the time I didn't. So they just got more and more intense. I did like fantasy. I did like sci-fi. To this day, I still like fantasy and sci-fi and horror as far as like reading. So now, Persephone women, as far as work, we usually thrive in roles where we can serve as like guides, like therapists, counselors, spiritual mentors, and death doulas, or creative fields where we can bring like hidden truths to the light. So, like I said, I'm in the process of getting my master's degree in clinical mental health counseling to become a therapist. And I already know that I'm not going to be a traditional therapist. I want to use like transpersonal modalities, solution-based, a lot of Jungian, which we're doing here. So I'm already preparing myself to become a guide to help people transform from one aspect to another, especially perimenopause and menopausal women, where we're going through this huge life transformation and rite of passage. So that's what Persephone women do. They go from Persephone to Hecate. Hecate was a guide in the underworld. She saw when Persephone was dragged down to the underworld, and she has a staff with a flame, and mature Persephone women turn into Hecate. So people who are lost within themselves, lost deep in their mind with depression, suicidal thoughts, addiction, Persephone women are equipped to guide others from one shore to the next, because they have lived these traumatic, transformative experiences themselves. So Persephone women with men and like their sexuality, they often attract intense, transformative relationships. And we initially may fall for dominant or mysterious partners, reflecting the Hades archetype. I had a relationship with a man who was 13 years younger than me, and I swear to God, he was such an Hades. He liked to stay by himself. He didn't want to speak to anybody, and I acted as like his liaison between him and the world. And he was very dominating, and he tried to be controlling. I'm like, look, I am way too much older than you for you trying to tell me what to do. It's not gonna happen. But yes, he was very much a Hades, and that was one of my most intense relationships. I learned a lot from him. He introduced me to a lot of different spiritualities, more of the esoteric type spiritualities he introduced me to, and he helped me grow a lot. It was a very painful relationship, but that's what Persephone women do. We attract men who are in a lot of turmoil. So addiction, gambling, smoking, drinking, drugging, cheating, because they see our light and they are attracted to our light. And if we're not capable of transforming those types of experiences ourselves, then we get sucked into the negative aspects of the underworld as well. Because the underworld, just like any other energy, it can be negative or positive. That's where the darkness is, and out of darkness comes light. Light is the gnosis, or the knowledge. But if we don't take and we don't gestate or lay fallow in the darkness and don't learn anything, we just get lost in the darkness. And that's what a lot of people do. They get lost in their addictions and their depressions and their suicidal tendencies, and they get lost and they don't know how to find their way out. So that's what we as Persephone women do. But we we also struggle with traditional careers. As you know, we prefer depth over surface level success. I have tremendous problems working in regular jobs because, you know, I can take a bird's eye view of everything. I can see deeper into everything. I question things. I'm rebellious, so-called. And I'm not a go along to get along type person. And a lot of my issues play out at the workplace. Not to say that I'm in there causing chaos, but I notice within myself, I get triggered a lot at work. So I have to come home and do a lot of shadow work and make sure that I stay grounded and focused and know what's really going on, because you have to take a metaphorical, metaphysical view of life and work. Everything is there is very surface. You know, people clap and smile when they know they don't want to clap and smile. They just, you know, everybody's lockstep, everybody's conforming, and I'm not like that. And I have, as a Persephone woman, I have problems. So that's why I'm getting my degree in counseling, because I need to have my own thing, and I want to be able to coach and help us women in this time. So yeah, Persephone women have a hard time working in traditional jobs, and they need to be in creative fields. They need to be in spiritual fields. They need to be in psychological fields. That's where their strengths are. So what about marriage and children? Persephone's journey can make marriage and motherhood complex, because she resists the traditional roles, needing a partner who honors both her independence and her depth. And sometimes if you have a son, that son can play the husband son aspect. You have to be careful of that too as a Persephone woman. Sometimes the son and the men in her life, they take her for granted, and they pretty much consider her a pushover because she's so sensitive and because she's so encompassing, and she takes all this energy, and she doesn't really have well-defined boundaries. She doesn't really know who she is because she lives in two different realms. So she's not as defined as her other sisters like Artemis and Athena. They know who they are, they know what they want. Persephone women have a little bit more hard time with that. She's a little bit more malleable. As a mother, we are deeply intuitive, but we struggle with grounding if we haven't embraced fully of our power, which is true. We have to learn how to spend time grounding ourselves, because we are so malleable in our energy. We have to draw back our energy and make sure that we're not giving it away, or we're not letting people siphon off our energy. We have to be contained. We have to have our own boundaries. We can't look outside of ourselves for things, because that's when we give our power away. So how are the Persephone women in the middle and late years? This is where we as Persephone women, our magic happens. A mature Persephone woman, we step into our full psychic and spiritual abilities, because we're coming back to ourselves. We had to forfeit ourselves, pretty much become mothers and working and partners. But now in our middle and later years, we may not have a partner anymore. We may not have a marriage anymore. Our children are grown. So now we can come back to who we really are. And that's when our psychic and spiritual gifts really come back online. And that's when we become the crone archetype. The crone is what I was talking about, Hecate, the guide, the one who helps others navigate their own darkness. And remember, you need to go through the darkness to transform, to be born again, so you can come out into the light with new knowledge. And that's what Persephone women do. Persephone women used to be, when we had nomadic cultures and we had tribal cultures, we used to be the shamans. We used to be the shamans of the culture. People would come to us if they're having problems with sicknesses, or they feel lost, or we would have visions and relay them to the people of what's going to happen, what could happen. You know, we were the shamans of the group, and we held a very, very important role within the group. And we no longer have our place in life. You know, the Artemis woman, she's the outdoors girl. She liked the animals. You know, she could be a veterinary. She can be a mountaineer, giving mountain tours, hiking tours. The Athena, your Athena sister, she's the legal corporate girly, so she has her place. Demeter, she's the hostess with the mostest. She's all about helping her man empower. But the Persephone woman, we were the oracles and the shamans and the prophetess, and those things are shunned in our society pretty much. And that's one of the reasons why I became a shamanic practitioner, because I want to be part of bringing back those types of cultures, so Persephone women can have their place and we won't be seen as freaking crazy. You know, a lot of Persephone women and Hades men get locked up in psych wards because we can see things, we can hear things. And in our society, that's not good. Because if our society allows us to see and hear things, it can empower us and would take the power away from them. They want to keep us weak and dependent upon the system of the matrix. So, but as perimenopause and menopausal women, we're coming back to that, and we need to embrace those particular powers. So it's time to claim your power as the queen of your own underworld. So how does a Persephone woman grow? 1, embrace your intuition, develop your psychic abilities. 2, learn to guide others through transformation. So that whether that's coaching, consulting, counseling, or just being a good listener or friend. Work with the shadow. Do your shadow work. Use tarot, use oracle, or mediumship. Develop your mediumship abilities. Own your darkness. It is a source of wisdom, and not shame. Don't be afraid of the dark, because that's where all the wisdom comes from. Think about it. Babies gestate in the dark and they come out. You know what I mean? So the darkness is where we gestate. Find the balance between the upper world, daily life, and the underworld, your inner depths or your spirituality. So the Persephone and pop culture. Persephone and pop culture. Jessica Lange as Fiona Good from American Horror Story. She's like a powerful supreme, the ultimate witch who lived through many, many decades of transformation and trauma and deep loss. She embodies the Persephone journey from innocence to dark wisdom. Eva Green as Vanessa in Penny Dreadful. Now, she was a psychic medium navigating the darkness. She was deeply intuitive and marked by supernatural experiences. She was a guide between the realms, much like Persephone in her later years. Michelle Pfeiffer as Suki Ridgemont in The Witches of Eastwick. Now, this is an old film, but if you are a Gen Xer, you probably remember it. She was a woman with hidden psychic powers who transformed after a dark and seductive encounter with the underworld figure, Darrell Van Horn, who was played by the guy who was in The Shining. I see his face, but I can't remember his name. Meryl Streep as Miranda Priestley, The Devil Wears Prada. Now, although she's not super mystical, she is a classic Persephone who has transformed into a powerful underworld queen, ruling with a god-awful iron will. Well, iron will is good, but iron fist is not. Frances Conroy as Myrtle Snow in American Horror Story Coven, along with Jessica Lange. Now, she was the one with the red hair. She was a wise, very eccentric woman who mastered the balance between light and dark, and she acted as like a role model and a mentor and a guide for the younger witches who were in the academy. Winona Ryder as Lydia Dietz in Beetlejuice 1 and 2. And Beetlejuice 2, the most recent one, she was a grown-up version of her teenage self, and she still was very gothic, very underworld connected Persephone energy. And Tilda Swinton as Madame Blanc in Suspiria. That was a movie back in 2008. She was like an older woman, very enigmatic, who led a mysterious dance academy filled with occult and transformative themes. So tell me down below. Okay, for a couple more, we have Stevie Nicks. You know, she's the ultimate Persephone crone. See, I just had a download. Known as the White Witch. Actually, she was in Coven with Jessica Lange. Tori Amos, a lot of her songs explore the trauma and personal transformation and divine feminine. And Kate Bush explores mystical themes, psychological depth, and underworld journeys in her music. So, why do they matter? These women have stepped into their Persephone queen phase. They are no longer naive, but have fully embraced their power, their darkness, and their role as guides for others. And they don't like shy away from like transformation. And many of them have an air of mystery and like wisdom and psychic depth. Okay, so now tell me down below. Do you resonate with the Persephone archetype? Are you a bridge between worlds, like a guide for others, like a mystic or a woman of deep transformation? And know that your power isn't staying in the light. It is knowing how to walk through the darkness and come out stronger. So again, tell me down below, have you had an underworld experience that changed your life? Do you relate to the Persephone archetype? Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and share with a fellow goddess on her journey.